Welcome to Soul Online. I'm Angela, and we're so excited to have you here. We're going to move into a time of worship. I'm going to come back on and talk about generosity, and then we're going to move into an uplifting message. Make sure to stay tuned all the way through because we have exciting announcements at the very end. Let's worship.
Welcome to Soul Online. We're so glad that you joined us today. Wherever you are, in your house, in your car, in your bedroom, we invite you to join with us and sing today. Here we go. Heaven thundered and the world was born. Life begins and ends in the dust you formed. Faith commanded and the mountains move. Fear is losing ground to our hope in you. Yes, it is. Come on, sing. Unstoppable God, let your glory go on and on. Impossible things in your name, they shall be done. Freedom conquered, oh yeah, all our chains undone. Sin defeated, Jesus is overcome. Oh. Mercy triumphed when the third day dawned. Darkness was denied when the storm was gone. So we sing this out. Unstoppable God, let your glory go on and on. Yeah. Impossible things in your name, they shall be done. Oh, we believe it out. Unstoppable God, let your glory go on and on. Impossible things in your name, they shall be done. Oh, we believe in the impossible, God. You do the impossible right here, right now. We're believing for it, we're trusting for it, and so we sing this out to you today. Nothing shall be impossible. Your kingdom reigns unstoppable. We'll shout your praise forevermore. Jesus, our God. Come on, sing it out. Nothing shall be impossible. Your kingdom reigns unstoppable. We'll shout your praise forevermore. Jesus, our God. Come on, lift your voice right where you are. Nothing shall be impossible. Your kingdom reigns unstoppable. We'll shout your praise. We shout it out today. We shout it out. Sing it one more time. Yeah. Nothing shall be impossible. Your kingdom reigns unstoppable. We'll shout your praise forevermore. Jesus, our God, unstoppable. You're unstoppable. You're unstoppable. Yeah, God of the impossible. We sing it out there. Unstoppable God, let your glory go on and on. Impossible things in your name, they shall be done. It shall be done in your name. Unstoppable God, let your glory go on and on. Impossible things in your name, they shall be done. Oh, thank you, Jesus. You're the unstoppable God. Oh, yes, you are. Yes, you are. Unstoppable God. Unstoppable God. Come on, shout it out.
Soul Church, you have been so faithful in your giving. Because of your faithfulness, we've not only made a local, but a global impact as well. Up on the screen and in the description below are various ways to give. Remember, we're not making a contribution, we're making a difference. Let's get into the message.
Hey, welcome this weekend to Soul Church Online. This week, I had a message that would go along in our series. And so I had Psalm 133, how good and pleasant it is when we dwell together in unity. And I've had this message in my heart for the last few months before May 25th hit. And so now we're here.
Yeah.
I have been wrestling with this. And I was talking to the Lord 2 days ago, and I told him I just felt like I don't have authority and I don't feel worthy to talk about racial issues. As a white man, I just felt unworthy, and the Lord, I really felt like he spoke to me that said that the authority is in my word, but it's also in the people of your church.
Yeah.
And that's why we're here.
Yeah.
And here's the goal is unity.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that this text says how good and pleasant it is when we dwell together, live together. There's proximity in unity.
Yeah.
So the goal is unity.
Sure.
I'll tell you what, right now it doesn't feel good and pleasant getting there.
Yeah.
Also, we have to be in harmony and be in community. There has to be proximity with people that don't look like us, believe like us, talk like us, think like us, look like us. And so we won't find unity till we get close enough in proximity, listen to each other. So I'm not here to preach at anybody. I'm here to actually process with you. I'm not here to bring answers. I'm actually here with a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And so open up your heart in this conversation. If you have children, I believe this is an opportunity, because the time is now to join them in the conversation. I want to introduce Jordan and Lindsay. And will you guys just share with Josiah and I where you're from, little background, and give us who you are. So.
I'll go first. All right,
Yeah.
so I'm Lindsay Lewis III. I'm actually from Houston, Texas. And it's kind of interesting that we're talking about, and a topic that we're talking about is Mr. Floyd today, but I am from, he and I went to the same high school, Jack Yates High School,
Wow.
in 3rd Ward. So, yeah, I live here in San Diego right now with my wife and 4 kids.
Wait, say that. You have 4 kids.
4 kids.
And how old are you?
So I am 35.
You're 35 with 4 kids.
Yeah, I was born in 85. I think I'm 35. I think I just turned 35. Yeah, 35. Yeah. So many kids. I'm like, forgetting how many, what's my age, you know?
Exactly.
So, yeah.
I love your kids. My son and Shepherd,
Boys, yeah.
man, they're inseparable.
Yep.
I love your son. I love your kids. Thanks for
We
being a
love you.
part
Yeah.
today. I know you told me I'm not a public speaker, but thanks for being a part in the conversation.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, Jordan.
Yeah, my name is Jordan Stantz. I am from San Diego, California, born and raised. I live here in San Diego with my family. My family has been in San Diego for over 60 years. So we've seen a lot of the changes and the growth of San Diego, and also the hardships and the hurts that can come with, especially the topics that we're talking about today. We get ready to get married, so I'm excited about that.
Man, let's go.
It's happening in a couple months. I have an incredible fiance named Brooke, and we're super excited to continue to serve the Lord in ministry.
Amazing, amazing. And you've served in great ministries, and Pastor Rich and Don Cherie, I love them at Blue Church, and I know they love you. And I do believe that God is going to use this conversation from your experiences, both good and bad. And so I wanted you guys to share on May 25th, the George Floyd horrendous, just couldn't even watch it. When that takes place, how do you feel? What are the thoughts going through your heart? And where were you? What was going on?
2015, black man gets killed. 2016, same thing at the hands of the police.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's more to just that statement that they went through court and figured out what was happening. But here we are again in 2020, guys in handcuffs pleading for his life, and then he gets killed. And so the thought is, or was, it's like, when does it stop? If the media wasn't there, right? Like, would the truth actually be revealed, right? But then also, when does senseless killings of black men, when does that stop?
That's a great question. How about you?
Yeah, for me, I remember briefly scrolling on Instagram and seeing the video, and right away I have a small little brief history in law enforcement, but immediately I didn't have my sound on. I knew that the method in which this individual was being so grotesquely treated was
Right.
wrong.
Yeah.
But right away, I turned my sound on and was able to hear just the pleading for help. And it struck such a deep chord in my heart, not as a black man, but as a man, as a human being.
Yeah.
Yep.
And to hear someone so in anguish get to the point that they called for the closest thing that they could to comfort as your mother,
Yeah.
Right.
and saying, someone just help.
I got
Right.
chills, man.
You know, that in and of itself affected me on a level that I will never forget.
I think there's a lot of people out there that don't know what to say.
Yeah. Yeah. So many people are saying so much right now,
Right,
you know,
right,
yeah.
but there's also a large portion of the community, and myself have been included. That first day, it was like, what actually do I say? You know, what do I do? Sometimes you feel like you could say the wrong thing.
Right.
You know, should I call someone and figure out what I'm supposed to say? That doesn't feel authentic and organic for you guys right now. What is hurtful and what is helpful?
Just this platform, like talking about it. My wife's white, so talking to her about it. Trying to educate my 9-year-old son, who's half black, half white, on this whole dynamic. So that is helpful, like talking about it. But you get to a point where it's, all right, we're talking about it, but then there has to be some action,
Yeah.
not just talking
Yeah.
about it.
Know what?
I think now I've come to the point, like, what's been hurtful, I think what I initially started talking about, like, this consistently happens. And, like, one of the things that's hurtful is being black still creates tension and anxiety in others. Like, that's hurtful. Like, to know that no matter how much I do, no amount of accomplishments, it's still not, or it's perceived as not enough in
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
in the eyes of other men, white men,
Yeah. Yeah.
What's been hurtful? What's been helpful?
Yeah, I think what's been hurtful for me is just as you receive the calls from friends, as you receive the calls from people in your circle, voicing their frustration and their hurt, I think what gets me the most is hearing, well, why are you frustrated if you don't know all the facts? Or why are you, we need more information to actually feel that pain.
Yeah.
So I think that's hurtful for me because there really is enough evidence, and
Absolutely.
as things are falling into play, and district attorneys are getting involved, and lawyers are getting involved, and judgment is being cast out, we're seeing that the actions that were taken are rightfully and justfully being honored.
Yeah.
And I think what makes me happy is and helpful is opportunities, obviously, like you said, for this to be able to share, for us to be able to share and to share truth, but also to be able to listen.
Yeah.
I think a lot of grace has to be put into play. As my white friends are sharing their frustration, they're asking questions.
Yeah.
So even though I'm hurt, even though we are frustrated, I believe a lot of people are hurt and frustrated, there's also a place for us to give grace and understanding and to sometimes stay silent and to be able to monitor our response in a graceful way.
I hear you saying that people have kind of like isolated an incident and like gone really micro on this incident and to try to dissect it, and really like they're missing so much bigger of an issue, that there's actually a systematic issue here.
Yes,
If we can't look at the big picture, we're going to miss it, because it's going to take another event to get us back into that. We've got to just see something bigger than that, I think.
Absolutely. One of my favorite quotes is, racism is like the dust in the air. When light shines on it, it becomes visible.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so for me, when racism is always going to be there, and as we try to work through that, as we try to now have more and more conversations on racial issues here in the church, in America, as brothers and sisters as a whole, we're creating a platform right now that allows for truth to be shared.
Yeah.
And that's all that we need to be able to start moving forward
Yeah.
to big change.
Yeah.
The platform, too, involves generations.
Correct.
Yeah.
Today, my 10-year-old turned 11, and last week, she finished her book, Just Mercy, which is racial issues, and so she brought all of her friends over to watch the movie together. And my daughter came up to the room that night, and she goes, "Dad, that's one of the worst things I've ever seen." And I walked downstairs with the girls. I said, "Hey, girls, how we doing?" And one of the girls goes, "Yeah, like, it's racism on the screen, but it is a whole nother thing when you're the one that's being judged. You're the one that's experiencing the racism."
Yeah.
At 10.
I'm thinking about your son, my daughter.
Right.
I was sitting at the table and with my wife and my sister-in-law, and she was like, "They're so young. Like, my nephew's 8 years old, and his best friend's black, and they don't even know anything about it."
Right.
And they're like, should we even be having a conversation? And I think last month I would have said, like, they're going to figure it out and they're going to love each other. But I almost feel like now at this point, with my 4-year-old daughter, I actually need to expose her to something, because exposure to what, it can't just all be pretty. Like, she's got to see the ugly inside of it and understand the reality. What kind of conversations are you having with your kids? What kind of conversations should I be having? Like, help us, man, help us.
Yeah, I would draw parallels to Jesus in the Bible. So he was discriminated against, went from town to town. Ultimately, he sacrificed himself. And so that same cruelty happened then, and this is what we believe. The same cruelty is occurring right now. I think additionally, literally just Google searching civil rights movements. And the bottom line is just the fact that you are willing to talk about it and create that exposure now is priceless.
I'll have a lot of white friends that'll say, "Well, I'm not racist. Like, this issue comes up, I'm not racist.
Yeah.
I don't see color." I think it's a very short-sighted statement, because we do see color. And it's okay to see color, because we're humans. This is who God made you. It's who God made me. Let's talk about that.
Everyone's trying to validate like their blackness right now. You know, like, I got 30 black friends. But I think saying, "Oh, I don't see color," I think we're missing one of the greatest concepts that Jesus showed us. You know, in the Bible, Jesus is like, "I've got to go through Samaria." He's got to go. He chooses to go through this place that culturally is so much different from him. The disciples were like a little shook because they didn't want to go through, because those aren't our people. But everywhere Jesus went, there was honor. The Zacchaeus was in the tree. He honored the man in the tree. He honored the woman at the well. Every single place he went, he saw the individual. And when we honor someone, we see them for who they are, without stumbling over what they're not. That's what honor does.
And you just answered your previous question about how do you have the conversation with your kid, just right there.
Yeah, I mean, I think we just can't miss honor, because like racism today we're highlighting and seeing like this tension in the black community. But racism exists. Like, racism just exists. Like, we can't be ignorant. Racism exists with Native Americans. Like, racism exists, and so if we're trying to flatten everything out, I think we miss it.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, I think at the end of the day, everybody has some sense of prejudiceness in their heart, whether that's between your own culture, whether that's between other cultures. And I think the most important thing to remember is that God created diversity. You know, and as you were speaking on honor is a calling. You know, and as we remember those moments that Jesus has placed us in places of diversity, remember those moments that Jesus has strategically placed us in areas, whether that's in San Diego, whether that's in Houston, whether that's where we all have come from, recognizing that fact of, like you said, honoring every single individual as a son and daughter of Jesus Christ, that in and of itself starts to bridge that divide.
That's good.
We talked about honor. As God's given me 2 ears, 1 mouth, I'm going to listen twice as much as I speak. I still have to have proximity.
Yeah.
Jesus goes through Samaria, and the reason he did that was to get proximity.
Yeah.
He wanted to be around people that didn't look like him, so
Yeah.
he meets this woman at a well,
Yeah.
asks for a cup of water, and so he now takes this cup and he puts his Jewish lips where her Samaritan lips have been.
Yeah.
Thus he creates a bridge.
Yeah.
That's right.
And bridges change everything, because a bridge of grace doesn't happen unless you have proximity.
Right.
And I think that's the thing right now that is the challenge is we're wanting unity without proximity.
That's
Because
good.
Yeah.
how good and pleasant it is when we live together.
Yeah.
Proximity in unity. So
good.
even before we get there, we got to be close. What's the challenge with that?
Challenge is you're going to have disagreements, but that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
Unity through proximity.
Yeah.
So
You know, the word says, like, when there's a spirit of heaviness, put on a garment of praise. You know, and what comes to mind is sometimes change happens by intentional relationships.
Yeah.
You know, like you've been intentional about reaching out. You've been intentional about having his family, your family's home. Like that is how it starts.
Right.
One conversation at a time,
Yeah.
one coffee at a time.
good.
Merging your daily life
Yeah.
with people that are different than you. Merging your circle, changing your circle.
Yeah.
Like my circle might look different than your circle. But as we start to remember who we are as
Yeah.
believers, who we are as a church, who we are as a body, our circle should look
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the body of Christ, which is different.
Yeah.
The body of Christ.
Yeah.
And we're saying that the goal is unity, but you won't have unity till there's equality.
Right.
yeah.
The Constitution, the Bill of Rights, all written with no black person in the room and wasn't written for you.
Right.
It was written by men who own black people.
Right.
So,
Written by men who own black
black
people.
let's,
Yeah.
And so we could go,
It's the truth. Yeah.
but we could say, oh man, they were in unity. No, they weren't, because there was no equality in the room.
Right. Yeah.
And so we got a lot of work to do. I see a mountain that needs to be moved. I think the Bible says something. If we have faith as small as a mustard seed, to say to that mountain, be thou removed.
Yeah.
I want to be a part of that faith movement.
Yeah.
I think right now it's bigger than just conversations. Like the white man, myself, I can't check the box. Well, I had this conversation.
Yeah, right.
I posted my one post with, I can't do that.
Right.
I want to lean in. I want to learn more. And I just think we have to do this together. We have to look at that mountain together and know that it's not going to be good and pleasant to get this unity. It's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be a struggle at times. And I'm glad I get to do that with you guys. Jordan, share with me what you shared on the phone.
yeah. When you look at what happened with Mr. Floyd and the death of what happened, I was reminded of the impact that is continually to make across the globe. It's evicting change. It's starting to create a recognition that hearts have to be moved.
Yeah.
We have to fix our focus to fix our fight, right?
That's good.
It reminds me of Jesus. Jesus walked around with his serpent, and honestly, he was ostracized. He was loved, but he wasn't. He spoke truth, but his truth was construed.
It's good.
And went against the norm of government. It went against the norm of authority. And ultimately, Jesus had to pay the ultimate sacrifice of death so that all our lives could be changed. So when I look at my life, I look at my fiance and the kids that we're going to have mixed race children one day. As I start to pray and prepare for that, I think, wow, did Mr. Floyd's death result in a world revival?
Wow.
Are we on the cusp of almost the most global impact that is going to change generational lives forever?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we as believers are one.
Yeah.
No matter what color, no matter what creed, we are one. And I think right now, the Lord has opened up a chasm for us as believers to charge through. We're soldiers.
Yeah.
Right? At the end of the day, we are soldiers in the mighty army of God. And this is our time.
Yeah.
This is our moment. This is what we signed up for
Yeah.
as believers. We didn't sign up for to share the gospel when it was easy and comfortable. We signed up to share the gospel of Jesus Christ when it got difficult. It's difficult. You know, it's uncomfortable. We're having uncomfortable conversations that will lead to comfortable, hopefully, results. You know, and so at the end of the day, I think if we recognize that Jesus Christ is at the center of our hearts, now and more than ever is the time for us to be able to march through that boldly. And just love on one another just the way Jesus loved each other. You know?
And I think that's the redemptive. That's the redemptive piece. So you're drawing a parallel of Jesus, like Jesus, who went before and sacrificed, and there was so much that was changed because of Jesus. We're here because of Jesus, and it's in His intention to redeem everything. And so even just on the cusp of this pandemic that like is not over, right? But we started to see even in the middle of that people coming together, more people viewing church than ever before. People being saved like all over the world. Soul Church affecting 50 countries in the past 8 weeks. Like we're starting to see what God is doing in the middle of what just seems like chaos. And I'm believing with you, man, that in the middle of this, that the church is going to rise up. This is going to be their greatest hour. We're going to be the church that takes that faith, that mustard seed faith, and partners it with some action to see the world change. And I think even just as the pandemic has brought us together into our families and becoming shepherds of our home, I'm praying that God would spark something in our homes in those same circles, that we start having conversations like this with our kids all across, wherever you are. And don't just say something, but do something. And see what God does. And if we lean on heaven's intelligence, I guarantee you right now, God's not like, what are we going to do? You know, there is a plan that heaven has. And as we begin to worship and partner with heaven, that plan will move from heaven to earth. I believe that with all my heart.
That's good. Absolutely. I think in closing, I was 21 at a conference. I felt like the Lord started calling me about my purpose and why I was here on earth. And the speaker gave everybody a piece of clay and said, begin to, with your hands, start forming in a picture of maybe what God is calling you to. And I remember with the clay, I just kept hearing the word bridge, bridge, bridge. And so I started making this bridge, and at 21, felt like the Lord called me to be a bridge, culture, ages. And so it's just been amazing how God has placed me culturally in circumstances and places. And I want to talk as a resource for any of you who are listening, watching, to go to bethebridge.com, bethebridge.com. And we need to learn. We need to ask more questions right now. We have to listen and just believe that the bridge that Jesus would be for us, it's a big deal.
Yeah, 1 Timothy 2:5. For there is one God and one mediator who could reconcile God and humanity, the man, Jesus Christ. And I think about even Jesus' last moments. He's hanging on the cross. He's between two thieves, right? He's between earth and heaven. He's suspended there. But Jesus also, God and man. He's in between God and man. And this scripture just, like, it sums it all up. He's between death and life in that moment. But Jesus comes, and Jesus is the bridge. He comes to be the bridge. And we get to model then the life of Jesus. Jesus came and brought justice everywhere he went. He was a bridge. He was connecting. He came to reconcile us. And so now we get to be this bridge. And so we're about to go and transition into worship. We're going to sing God of Miracles. But I would just say before you go, I would search your heart and see where you can be a bridge in your community, in your family, and follow after the life of Jesus.
Let faith arise. In spite of what I see, Lord, I believe. Help my unbelief, I choose to trust you. No matter what I feel. come, I lift my eyes. Oh, for the battle has been won. My God is faithful, and every single word He says is true. Yeah. God of miracles, come. We need Your supernatural love to break through. Nothing's impossible. You're the God of miracles. Yeah, yeah. Oh, sing it out. This world is shaking, but You cannot be shaken. My heart is breaking, but I'm not broken yet. Your love is fearless. Help me to be courageous too. Yeah, for there's nothing impossible. This world is shaking, You cannot be shaken. My heart is breaking, but I'm not broken yet. Your love is fearless. Help me to be courageous too. There's nothing impossible for the God of miracles. We need Your supernatural love to break through. Nothing's impossible for the God of miracles. Yes, You are. You're the God of miracles. Oh, God of miracles, come. We need Your supernatural love to break through. Nothing's impossible. You're the God of miracles. God of miracles. God of miracles. God of miracles. We need Your supernatural love to break through. Nothing's impossible. You're the God of miracles. God of miracles. Yes, You are. Yes, You are. We've seen You do it, so do it again. We've seen the miraculous. Do it again. We see Your nature. Do it again.
What an incredible and relevant message we heard. Make sure to follow us on social media to stay connected. This summer, we are so excited. We have Soul Circles. Also, all my fellow Soul sisters, we're starting a summer book club. Guys, we haven't forgotten about you. We are so excited. We're going to be celebrating Father's Day in a couple weeks, so make sure to stay tuned for that. Thank you for joining us. We had such an incredible time. We'll see you next week.